The shooting range went silent. The men who had been smirking seconds earlier now leaned forward, jaws tight, as the target flipped back toward them. Hole after hole sat clustered in the dead center of the bullseye, impossibly precise. The woman they had dismissed as out of place lowered her rifle slowly, her expression calm. No excuses left. No jokes left. The base wasn't laughing anymore. The dust rose in small clouds as the transport van rolled through the front gates of the training base. It was a place known for its grueling regimen, a proving ground where reputations were made or broken in the silence of the shooting range. The men stationed there had seen countless recruits come and go, but the arrival of this particular candidate sparked a wave of snickers before she even stepped onto the gravel. A woman, slight in build, dressed in standard fatigues, her hair tied back with military precision, walked forward carrying a rifle case slung across her shoulder. She wasn't the first woman to pass through these gates, but the mere fact she had requested entry into the sniper training program, the most prestigious and punishing track on base, was enough to set the barracks buzzing. "Sniper?" one of the soldiers muttered, just loud enough for his buddies to hear. She'd be lucky to hold steady with a pistol. Laughter followed, the kind of laughter meant to sting, meant to remind her she didn't belong. But if she heard them, she didn't show it. Her boots struck the ground in an even rhythm, her chin held high, eyes scanning her surroundings as if she was already calculating wind direction and sight lines. There was no hesitation in her step, no falter in her expression. Still, the culture of the base was brutal in its skepticism. Everyone was tested here, but women faced a sharper edge to that test. A demand not just to succeed, but to crush every doubt before it even left someone's lips. And right now, every pair of eyes told her she had something to prove. When she finally made her way to the central office, she wasted no time. The commanding officer, a tall man with years of weather carved into his face, glanced at her file before raising an eyebrow. "You requested sniper qualification?" he asked flatly. "Yes, sir," she replied without hesitation. He leaned back in his chair, the faintest hint of a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "You know what that means, don't you?" "Ido." "You'll be up against the best shots on this base. Every one of them will be watching." Her answer was simple. "That's why I'm here." The officer's smirk disappeared. Her tone carried no arrogance, no bravado, just certainty. He nodded once, then closed the file. "Fine. You'll get your chance. But don't expect any mercy." Word spread faster than wildfire. By evening, the story had traveled from the firing range to the mess hall. She asked for sniper qualification. The laughter grew louder, men betting cigarettes, money, and pride on how quickly she would fold. They imagined shaky hands, missed targets, maybe even tears. What none of them imagined was that by the end of the week, those same hands would silence their laughter in a way none of them could ignore. The day of the trial dawned bright and merciless. The range stretched out under the unforgiving sun, dotted with targets that seemed impossibly distant to the untrained eye. Rows of sandbags, prone mats, and spotting scopes lined the field. For most recruits, this was the day they dreaded. For her, it was the day she had been waiting for. The crowd gathered early. Word of her request had turned into an event, something the men couldn't resist watching. They leaned against fences, swapped jokes, and shook their heads, waiting for the inevitable embarrassment. To them, it wasn't a competition. It was entertainment. She arrived quietly, rifle case in hand, her uniform sharp and unwrinkled despite the heat. There was no sign of nerves. She set the case down on the bench, opened it with calm precision, and revealed her weapon. A standard-issue sniper rifle, its black frame gleaming in the sunlight. The commanding officer stood nearby, clipboard in hand, his voice carrying across the range. "Today you'll fire in rotation against our top shooters. Standard drills. Stationary and moving targets. Long distance. We'll see if you belong here." The men chuckled. One of them, Corporal Hayes, was a legend on the range, his name synonymous with accuracy. He stepped forward with a grin, muttering just loud enough, "Better hope the wind's on your side." She didn't respond. Instead, she checked her rifle, scope alignment, chamber, bolt, bipod. Each movement was crisp, practiced, deliberate. She wasn't here to answer words. She was here to answer with shots. The first round began. Targets flipped up at 300 yards, each carrying the small black circle at the center. Hayes went first. 3 shots rang out in quick succession, and 3 neat holes appeared clustered just off-center. The crowd cheered, slapping each other on the back. Then it was her turn. She lay prone on the mat, sliding into position with the rifle resting steady on the bipod. She adjusted the scope, inhaled once and exhaled. The silence stretched. Even the crowd seemed to lean closer, waiting. The first shot cracked through the air, clean, sharp. The target flipped back, revealing a hole dead center. A few men frowned. Maybe luck. The second shot came. Another center hit. Murmurs spread. By the third, the laughter that had filled the morning was gone, replaced by uneasy silence. But this was only the beginning. As the drills advanced, the difficulty escalated. Targets swung from side to side. Others popped up at random intervals, some at distances that tested even the veterans. One by one, the men fired and scored respectably, but none flawless. When her turn came, she didn't flinch. Each shot was measured, patient, deliberate. Windage adjusted. Breathing controlled. Trigger squeezed. Never pulled. And with each crack of the rifle, the targets dropped, the spotting scopes confirmed, and the disbelief on the sidelines deepened. By the time the sun climbed to its peak, whispers had replaced laughter. The men weren't watching a joke anymore. They were watching someone who might outshoot every last one of them. And she wasn't even finished yet. The final round began just as the sun hit its highest point, beating down on the range, and the soldiers gathered there. By now, the base had stopped whispering. Even the veterans who had once laughed were standing quietly, holding their breath, watching her every move. There was no cheering, no smirks. Only the tense anticipation of what was about to happen. She lay on the prone mat, the rifle resting perfectly on its bipod, eyes scanning the distance. Targets at 400 yards flickered into view. Some were moving, some stationary, each more challenging than the last. The commanding officer's clipboard hovered at his side, but he didn't speak. Even he knew this moment was bigger than any checklist or protocol. Her first shot cracked across the range. Dead center. The second shot, again flawless. She adjusted for a slight wind shift, breath controlled, posture unchanged. Shot after shot, each finding its mark. The crowd could no longer hide their astonishment. Soldiers shifted uneasily, the previous bets and jokes evaporating in disbelief. Corporal Hayes, the veteran sharpshooter who had mocked her before, was now pale. His own shots had been precise, but the woman in front of him made his achievements look pedestrian. He gritted his teeth as she fired again, hitting a moving target at 450 yards with unerring accuracy. Murmurs ran through the sidelines. How is she doing this? She didn't glance at the crowd. She didn't look at the commanding officer. All her focus was on the targets, the wind, the rifle, the rhythm of each shot. In that moment, she became more than a recruit. She became a force, a master of skill and control that no one on that range had expected. By the time the final target appeared, flashing briefly, almost taunting, she was ready. The tension was unbearable. A collective inhale passed through the observers. She fired. Dead center. The final bell of certainty had rung. The range fell silent. It wasn't just skill. It was dominance. It was the quiet but undeniable proof that every laugh, every doubting glance, had been premature. The base that had scoffed at her request now had no words, only the undeniable truth. She had outshot every sniper present, some of whom had years of experience she could only imagine. The commanding officer stepped forward, his expression unreadable. Then slowly he nodded. A brief, curt nod, but it carried weight. The men who had laughed were still stunned, some shaking their heads, some staring at their own hands, as if trying to comprehend what they had just witnessed. She lowered her rifle, her calm demeanor unchanged, and packed it back into its case. The silence around her was deafening, yet respectful. No one spoke, but the message was clear. She belonged. She hadn't just met the standard. She had redefined it. By the end of the day, the story had spread across the base. The woman who had been dismissed, mocked, and doubted had become the benchmark for excellence. Her presence on the range was no longer a curiosity. It was a warning, a lesson, and an inspiration all at once. From ridicule to reverence, from laughter to awe, she had done what few thought possible. She had outshot every sniper, and in doing so she had changed everything.